Welcome back to Disc Media, a startup story, the podcast where I take you along our journey of starting Disc Media from the ground up. You get to hear all about our challenges and accomplishments as we either grow Disc Media or go bust. Either way, you're going to have a front row seat to hear it all. And along the way, we're going to have some special guests who share with us their wisdom and insights and what helped them along their startup journey to success. So get ready as we get into it and try to help those get better at what they do. Welcome back, everybody, to Disc Media, a startup story, the podcast where we take you behind the scenes of starting Disc Media from the ground up. And as our intro says, we do on occasion have some special guests. And this week we have a good one. I am actually flattered that this gentleman took the time to even, bestow his presence upon us, because he's got a really dynamic background and has accomplished some really, really cool stuff. So we welcome to our podcast today, Dave Burnett, who is a seasoned entrepreneur, investor, digital marketing expert with over 25 years of experience, founder of AOK Promotionalproducts.com, and co-founder of Achievers.com, which is a company he sold for over $100 million. Accomplished all of this while recovering from a traumatic brain injury, and today continues his work with AOK Marketing, promotional products, as well as co-runs Valley Capital, coaches business leaders through Bloom Growth, and is based in Toronto. So Dave, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Yeah, and you make me sound really busy. I appreciate that. And you also said that I was bestowing something. I'm going to use that in conversations, that my presence was bestowed upon someone today. So I appreciate you doing that. But yeah, no, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, one of the things that we try to do is through this podcast, kind of help people learn, to help people improve their knowledge and truly kind of get better at what they do. And looking at your background, I mean, you just have just a flurry of things that you've done and had your hands in. One of the things I like to start off with is kind of going back a little bit, because it's great to look at where we are now, with history as all behind us, but it started somewhere, right? And so with you getting into the multiple things that you've done, where did the journey start? Like, what was the inspiration for saying, this is something that's interesting to me and I think I want to pursue that?
Well, the first business I had was actually back in university. So I was in third year university. I guess a junior in college is another way to put it. But in Canada, where I'm from, it was third year university. And I was working for somebody, and it was an ad agency who had subcontracted out to do some point of purchase sampling. So imagine Costco, the people are sampling, except here we did that for beer and liquor. So that's what we were doing. And I looked at what they were doing, and I'm like, I can do this. Like, oh my gosh, you guys are killing me. Look at how badly this is run. And being full of myself as any 20 or 21-year-old is, I can go do this. So I did. And I went out and I got Bacardi and Labatt's as clients and started doing the exact same thing. So I became a rep for those liquor and beer brands and was out going door to door, door to door being in the bars and giving away free booze. So that was my first thing. So my impetus to start was, you guys, like, not you personally, but the people I was working for, I'm like, you guys suck. And I could do this better. And I had no idea what I was doing. And they were so much better at it than I'm sure I was at the time. But it just, you don't know what you don't know. So I just started doing. And it kind of grew from there, which was great.
So you kind of seizing on the opportunity of seeing somebody, knowing there's a better way to do something.
Thinking there was a better way to do something. Yeah, I certainly didn't know, but I thought there was. Yeah.
Good catch. And so what did that then lead to? Because you haven't yet finished school.
No.
So this kind of was the thing that filled the gap until what happened next?
Well, so to date myself, this was in the late, This was in the mid to late 90s. How about we just leave it there?
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to completely date it. It was 97. And so
Like
this is when I
Zima was a
started.
thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. This is before Google was a thing. Like, this is how far back we're going. So the fact that I have a digital marketing agency that, depends on the internet and Googles of the world is something actually pretty interesting. But we'll get there. So the short version is I ran that company for a couple of years and then graduated from university and sold it to my investor / partner. So a friend of mine's dad had decided to, I needed some cash. Didn't know how to run a business, so I didn't know what cash flow was, and I just know I didn't have any of it. So he invested some money, and I sold it to him at the end of my university career because I was working every Thursday, Friday, Saturday at events with 50 employees province-wide. And so I was like, I'm done. Like, I burnt out of my first business before I graduated from college. So sold it to him, and then started doing some independent consulting, and then got into a promotional products business. And in that promotional products business is where I co-founded and started achievers.com. So that's how that all started. And what it was we were in a client who was a bank, and they wanted to reward their employees for doing great work, and they didn't have any good systems or ways to do it at the time. So this is 2000 now. And so in 2000, there was the dot everything, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the dot-com bubble, the dot everything. So we were the first people to take incentive programs, create points programs for businesses, and then have them be able to their employees go online and redeem for product. We were the very first ones to be able to do that. So we ended up at the bank. We ended up working with GE and others. And so that was a good adventure. And then I actually left that venture in 2002. So absolutely, you are absolutely right that it sold in 2015 for $110 million. Unfortunately, I did not put that money in my pocket. It's something that I had been bought out of that business years before, and they did amazing work, and I can't take any credit for how they grew. But yeah, that's what happened on that side of things.
That's incredible. I remember about that time I was working at Coca-Cola. We used to have one of those employee incentive programs where you earn points and exchange them for services and coupons and such. So
Absolutely.
I've been out of the big corporate world for some time now. I'm not sure if they're still doing things like that, but
I'm sure they are. The programs grow and change. People still love the incentives. They still love to be rewarded. So for
this
sure.
is true. Absolutely true. So one of the things I was reading about your background was that you had been pursuing a web domain for upwards of, I think it was 16 years, I read.
Yeah.
Is that AOK Marketing?
No, that's promotionalproducts.com.
Oh, okay.
So after I left the promo business and left Achievers, I went out and started my own promotional products company. And back in 2002, 2003, when I was getting started, I thought I recognized some of the benefits of the internet, and I thought, I'd love to own promotionalproducts.com. And so I reached out to the guy who had the domain and said, can you sell this to me? And his response was, sure. Here's the great big number that I will sell it to you at. And I was like, I don't have that kind of great big number. I don't have that kind of cash. So no, that's not going to happen. And then I called him up a few months later, and the number got bigger. I called him up a few months later, the number got bigger. So now we're into 2004. So I called him every 6 months from 2004 to 2018. And then finally in 2018, he said to me, Dave, my son doesn't want the URL. So he had originally said, and he said for all those years, my son wants it, not going to do it. I'm keeping it for him. My son wants it. He finally said, Dave, my son doesn't want it. You caught me on a good day. Here's my number. And the number was more reasonable, and I was, able to afford more at the time. And so I was like, okay, done. Let's do this. So it took me literally, 16 years from 2002 up until 2018 to be able to get that domain, which we now own, which is great. And it's paid for itself many, many times. So it was a great investment.
Yeah. I mean, it is a great, it is something that people Google, and I'm sure it's got to be the first hit.
It gets us traffic. That's for sure.
It's funny. I shared this on another podcast I did earlier this week. What's kind of funny about our publication website, which is the Daily Pitch. So dailypitch.news, unbeknownst to me, there was a venture capital group called PitchBook that they, unbeknownst to me, started. I somewhere around the same time we started a newsletter called. They started a newsletter called The Daily Pitch. My website's called The Daily Pitch, and it's great because my SEO, actually I outrank them. And on many things I outrank them because I just, I flood so much of our content through the Daily Pitch. And it is nice that when people search that term, and I always get newsletter subscribers, and they're from like these investment firms, and I'm like, I know they got the wrong place, but what's nice is they don't unsubscribe, so that's kind of cool.
That is good. That means you're still giving great content, so that's half the battle, right?
Yeah, that does help. That does help. So because you've got promotional products, you got AOK Marketing, I imagine that they maybe do, in the sense that they play in very similar sandboxes, but probably on different sides of that sandbox. They complement each other, I'm sure, in some way.
Yeah, they're both marketing related. There isn't a lot of overlap. There's a couple of clients that use, gifts and giveaways that also use our digital marketing services. It's not like lead gen one for the other very much. It's just an interesting perspective because for me to be on the acquisition side of things, so I think of businesses in kind of three buckets. You've got inside a business, the way a business works in three different main buckets. The first bucket is acquisition. So that's sales and marketing. Second bucket is operations or delivery. And the third bucket is admin. So HR, finance, legal, everything that keeps you out of jail. That's basically admin. So being able to be good in all three of those areas is very rare. So clients come to us because they're lacking something in terms of acquisition usually, and that's where we focus. So that in terms of where and how those businesses fit together, they're both in that same side of things. And that's what I love to do. I love to be able to get the word out, help people spread awareness, and promote better products. Because the one thing I've discovered is marketing and advertising, which I consider kind of the act of getting known. When you actually help somebody get known, that's what you're actually doing with marketing and advertising. But what I found is if you don't have good delivery, you can drive your business into the ground. There's nothing that will drive it into the ground faster than a great marketing campaign, because all of a sudden everybody knows how bad your product is. So you have to, people, it's probably weird coming from a marketing guy to say this, but you have to make sure that your delivery is locked down, nailed down. You are getting referrals. People are loving your stuff, whatever it is that you sell, before you really start putting marketing fuel behind it. Because some people think, I got to lead with marketing and I don't have a product really. I don't really have fulfillment. And that's often a problem.
One of our early board members on Dis Media, when I first launched it, a gentleman by the name of Matt Sankum. And I've talked about Matt on the podcast a couple of times. He actually just became CEO of Unusual Whales. So that's kind of cool. But Matt was one of the first people. He's got a background in journalism. One of the things he told me when I started this thing, because we started with zero audience, no followers, no anything. And I was asking him, like, should I pay for traffic? Should I advertise? Should I do all this stuff? And he's like, Ben, two things. First of all, don't pay for anything yet, because as soon as you stop paying, they're going to go away. But the one thing that was like the golden insight was audiences take time. Yeah. And nothing grows like these things that blow up seemingly overnight. Very rare occasion those things happen, but usually it's a slog. It is day in and day out, doing the reps, putting in the time, analyzing the data, looking at the results, seeing what worked, what doesn't work, tweaking it a little bit here and there. And to his credit, 2 years later, we're still rolling, and the audiences continue to move in a upward to the right. So that's good. But to go into marketing too quickly, I'm really glad we didn't do that.
Yeah, well, you need to know what you're selling, and you need to know who's listening, and you need to identify your ideal customer and all of those good things for sure. And you may not even know who that is on day one. You might think you know, kind of like how I thought I knew what I was doing when I started the sampling business, but I didn't. And, I would do it very differently now, having 30 years of experience almost in this entrepreneurial world. But, being an entrepreneur, being any kind of leader, it's really interesting when you try to make those decisions about where to go next. Where does the future hold, and where's the best future for whatever it is you're trying to accomplish? So, having a real clarity of vision is important for a leader. And that's difficult to find, and that's difficult to have sometimes.
So the work that you guys are doing now with acquisitions, help me understand that a little bit more, because is it marketing for people who are trying to get acquired, or how does that work?
So I think in terms of acquisition as like acquiring customers for you. And
Got it.
so if somebody is trying to acquire a customer for their business, then that's the way we look at it. So we help them get known. We help them with paid media, as you mentioned. We help them with SEO. We help them with GEO, generative engine optimization, or SEO for AI, however you think of it. And so we do that for people to try and help them get noticed and earn more business. So.
Got it. Well, and yeah, AI is really kind of changing the search game. One of the tools that I use on my platform is Yoast, for just kind of helping us make sure we're hitting all the right things as we're putting articles out. I know recently I attended one of their talks, and they talked about how, typically you have that file that helps search engines find you, but now you need a text file that helps the AI engines find you.
So that's the robots.txt file and the LLMS text file. Those are the two. Yeah.
Yeah. I think AI is going to be probably, a couple different things I was thinking about here, because as people get more into using it as a tool, my own personal habits, I've used AI frequently to the point where I don't even really Google things much if I don't have to. I go use AI, and it gives me so much more information. But one of the things, a guest of mine spoke about this a couple episodes ago, was the fear of AI turning into that sponsored search kind of tool, right? So great if you're a marketer, but how do you balance that? Or how are you doing that today when it comes to AI and search with clients that you're working with? Like, how do you condition the content, I guess, to prioritize it in that realm? And how much do we really know about that yet?
So we've done a whole ton of research associated with how the models work, how they're trained, and how you can do different things to show up in the models. So and when I say models, I'm talking about ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude. All the different chatbots are all powered by large language models. So that's what I mean when I say models. It can be any of those things. So what we've done with all this research is realize that there are two different things that people are sometimes confusing. And that's just because there isn't a lot of information out there. So the first thing is, people think it's the same as Google search. So Google goes out to the internet, has crawlers, finds out information. You want to get ranked, and you want to get your individual page ranked for a particular search query. Whatever somebody types into Google, you want your page to show up. You want them to click on your page, and then you want them to go to your site and do whatever you want them to do. For AI, it's a little bit different, because they are making up the answers. It's why it's called generative optimization, or generative answers that they do. And so as a result of that, when you're optimizing for this, you need to understand that they are trained differently. So what happens is, the large language model companies have crawlers that go out to the internet, figure out all the information about the internet, bring that back into their database, and that database becomes their core knowledge. That core knowledge has a cutoff date where they stop training. I think of it like going to high school. All of a sudden, they're done high school, which means they get cut off, and anything that they learn up to that is in their knowledge base, but they don't know university or college level anything about that. So What happens then is the large language model companies spend 6, 8, 10 months training those models to be nice and answer questions properly and not be biased or racist or any of those kinds of things. And then they release them to the public. So, for example, GPT-5 was released at the beginning of August, and their training data actually cuts off in October of 2024. So we're recording this in October of 2025, and the model's only 2 months old. So they took them 10 months to release it to the public after they finished training it. So this is the gap that people don't get. So anything after October of 2024, say you're like, what happened in May of 2025, or what happened, since Donald Trump was elected? Is there any news there in relation to that? Politics aside, then all the model doesn't know. And so it has to go out to the internet and figure out what's happened and then come back and give you information. So that's AI search. So you have core knowledge, and then you have AI search. So when people are trying to be found, the models check their core knowledge first. If they know the answer, they'll give you the answer from the core knowledge because it's cheaper and faster for them to do that. If they don't know the answer, then they have to go to the internet, crawl, interpret that information, and then tell it to you. So if they do all of that, it's a lot heavier lift. And so you can get the answers you need, but you need to sometimes specify that. So that's kind of the way it works. People don't get that all the time. And if they're trying to be found in the AI models, what they have to realize is the training is happening right now for GPT-6 or GPT-7, right? GPT-6 may already be trained, and they've already cut off their date, and they may be planning to release it, who knows, in the next 6 months. But so now they're training GPT-7. So do you want to be found in the core knowledge? My answer is yes. And do you want to be found in AI search? The answer is also yes. So this is what people are having to try and do. So
it's a little bit more of a longer game, because even the web crawlers, takes a little bit, but it's certainly faster, I imagine, than these 10 to 14 month cycles of learning.
Well, AI search is actually pretty good. If you're searching for specific, they crawl all the time and they go out and try and find the information. They use things like Bing crawler, like OpenAI is 49% owned by Microsoft. So, they use Bing crawler to go out there and find additional information. So they are pretty up to date. Like I was on a podcast, I went and searched some information, and it turns out I was able to find reference to that podcast 4 days later after the podcast went live. So my 10 cents to you is, if you're doing these podcasts, is to post the entire transcript of these podcasts, and that will help with your SEO, which I'm assuming you're going to do.
Yeah. There, we try to do everything we can to make things findable. So in addition to posting the transcript, which we usually do as we post it, because when we post the podcast, it goes out on Spotify. Spotify does the transcript. We post it on YouTube. And so we have that there. It goes to all the other platforms that are out there. But in addition to that, we do an SEO optimized news article about the topic that talks about the podcast. Then we do an episode posting of the podcast. So it's like and then we post all of that stuff on LinkedIn and Facebook, X, Threads, you name it. So, we do a lot to try and make sure that we saturate the engines, if you will, to the stuff that we're putting out there. And that's what I was saying earlier about the audiences take time. One of the things I found when we were putting this together was I was kind of dumb when it came to SEO optimization. Not kind of dumb, like I was just an idiot, because I got the concept of SEO optimization being make sure you use a good keyword and then anchor that keyword in your title and throughout your article to make sure that it's used enough. Well, that's a very small part of it, because then you realize, you look at tools like SEMrush or Ubersuggest or others, that there's a difficulty, right? To rank for that keyword based on what your domain authority is, right? So if you have a low domain authority and a great keyword, but everybody else is ranking on that keyword and your domain authority is low and theirs is high, you're never going to be found. You're going to be like a page 150 of Google. it's
Yeah, you're never going to be found. You're absolutely right.
So it's not just finding a good keyword, but it's finding a keyword that isn't used very well, that has low difficulty with a decent, domain score, and then all of that kind of helps you rank a little bit better.
Yeah, those are what people call long tail keywords. So how far out, in terms of if you have a core central concept, like say you're Starbucks and you were trying to be found for coffee, right? And then all of a sudden you get into coffee that's a frappuccino, and you get into coffee that's, a triple double latte with, whatever it is. Like the longer and more complex it is, the fewer competitors you have. And that applies across whatever industry you're in. So if you can start to get into those niche or niche, depending on how you say it, areas, then you can certainly move the needle, because there are people who are searching for that stuff. And usually if it's buyer intent, then you can get, some good buyers if they happen to answer a question that they're looking for.
Yeah, that's another element of it. I happen to teach a course in social media, and as part of the course, what I do is with my students, I give them access to SEMrush, and they get some certification through it. So we all get to learn the tool together. That was another element that came up, was the intent of the search, right? Mm-hmm. So whether people are looking to buy something, whether they just want to be informed about something, and those things help to manipulate your rank, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
Because different words people may be looking for, but looking for them for different reasons.
Yeah, and there's 4 different types of searches, as you were talking about there. There's informational, navigational, commercial, and transactional. So of those 4, AI is taking over all the informational stuff, right? It's like, what makes a tree green? And then all of a sudden it talks about chloroform and sun and all that kind of stuff. And it'll just be in the AI answer. And that's powered by Gemini, their AI, basically chatbot or LLM. So you can, that is going away. But if somebody was like, I want to buy a Nike shoe in size 11, white with a black swoosh, whatever you wanted to do, it would show you all of the commercial, right, things. If you're like, I want to buy it right now, transactional, right? So you can see all of those different things. And if it's navigational, it's like, where's a Starbucks near me? It's not going to give you an AI overview. It's going to show you a map with 3 or 4 different locations of whatever that is, if it's a Nike store or if it's a Starbucks store or whatever. So depending on what search you actually are trying to do on Google in particular, it'll give you a different search results page and a different response.
One of the things I remember reading about you as I was prepping for this was that you had capitalized on a lot of local domain names to kind of capture that local search market. Can you walk me a little bit through that? Because you were touching on that a little bit with the navigational search. I have a feeling that these things all kind of are interwoven with each other.
They are. So what happened was back in the Great Recession, again, I'm dating myself, but basically I had the promotional products business, and I didn't own promotionalproducts.com at the time. So the company was called An Opportunity Knocks, which is where the AOK comes from in AOK Marketing. So we were working hard, and then the Great Recession came and the business went to zero. And so we were losing $70,000 a month, which wasn't great. And so I had to figure out a better way to sell. So I had to learn online. And so I went and learned online. What I did was I went out and registered 3,000 URLs. So like promotional products Toronto, or promotional products Seattle, or promotional products whatever city, like all geography based. So I bought all 3, like everything. Any city in Canada or the US that had over 100,000 people, I owned promotional products that city. But I also often owned that city, then promotional products. Like I own variations of different things. And so this was back in 2008, 2007, 2008. And I put up 500 websites. So there was actually a real website on promotionalproductsseattle.com, for example. And what ended up happening was it became a great source of lead gen, because at the time, Google really liked exact match domain names, which is what that is. If somebody types in promotional products Seattle, they are looking for promotional products Seattle, and it would show our websites as first. So that's what happened. But then In 2011, there was an update to the algorithm because too many people were capitalizing on that exact same thing. And a lot of our websites just went away in terms of their rankings. There wasn't, we weren't in Seattle, as an example. We didn't have a local presence. So local presence became more important. Verifiable local presence became even more important. And then, so if you had a physical address in Seattle and you had a phone number in Seattle, and then you had 10 Google reviews from Seattle businesses, Google was going to rank that higher than our promotional product Seattle. So that's basically what happened, except across all of them. Well, not all of them, but a good chunk of them. So that was a real challenge.
For those who don't know and dig into this, and my goodness, you're got way more on this than I do, but something that I've discovered that is frustrating is that Google is always tweaking their search algorithm. And, there are times when I do have access to something like SEMrush and I, kind of look at my stuff. There are times when like we're hitting it. Our visibility scores are going up, like, our engagements are up, everything's up, up, up. And it's great. We get a whole bunch of traffic. And then without reason, just all of a sudden it just like starts slowly ticking down and going down, down, down. And when you look back, it's like, oh, well, Google made a change here. There was an update put out at this point. And, it's this constant kind of roller coaster of up and down and up and down. Are there any insights you have around, like, is that just the nature of the beast, or are there things that people can do to protect themselves a little from things like that?
Yeah, so that I would call the Google slap. You get slapped by Google down, or Facebook slap, depending on how you look at it. And so, yeah, that's what happens is people learn the system, they understand what the algorithm is doing, and then they try to game the system. Right? They try to game the algorithm, and then they do it again, and then they do it again, and then the Google finds it, catches them, shuts that door, finds them, catches them, shuts that door. And so it's an ever challenging battle. And I actually, I used to do that. This used to be the things to do. But honestly, the better way to do this is through real authority. Mm-hmm. I break it down very simply. You are probably in a competitive space. Whoever's listening to this, whatever space they're in, is probably really competitive. So there's going to be people who say the exact same things as you do about how awesome they are in your service business or product business or whatever. But what they can't say is what you've actually done. So if you have actually serviced a client, delivered an exceptional result, and therefore you can talk about it, that's what you should talk about. I mean, you need to have foundational content on your site and in your media and all that kind of stuff so that the machines understand what you're about. Beyond that, though, you should talk about your own thought leadership, your own experience, because Google loves experience, expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. So they don't like it when you try to game the system. They don't like it when you lie and cheat and steal and say you're in Seattle, but you're not in Seattle. Those kinds of things. And just for clarity, we never said we were in Seattle. We always had our other address in there, but we did have the URL. So, it's one of those things. So the way to future-proof your SEO and future-proof your business is to be an authority on what you do. And so you've got some experience associated with what you do, and just like do cool stuff, talk about the cool stuff you're doing, and then do more cool stuff and talk about that. Right? Like it's this very simple cycle. Now that's for your overall content, but within the Google side of things, you need to be technically accurate. You need the machine and the LLM machines to be able to find your information. So you need to have all of your technical stuff, because if you are talking about running shoes, but the main headline on your page is about coffee, Google's going to be confused. Like, think about it as a very simple person. Like, it needs to line up. Like, if it's about running shoes, the picture should be of a running shoe that has alt text or information about that image that's about running shoes. You should have running shoes in the body of the article. You should have comparisons to other running shoes, links to sites that have running shoes on them. Like, you make it as simple as possible. This is a post about running shoes. And, that's how you do it. It's just really kind of basic. If you do the basics well, then you can definitely capitalize on Google and always be there. So it's all about your authority and then your entity's authority. So the more authoritative you become, like for example, if we're talking about GEO, right? Generative Engine Optimization, or SEO. That's, I as Dave Burnett and AOK Marketing talk about GEO and SEO. If all of a sudden I started talking about flowers, Google would be very confused, and rightfully so, as would any of the listeners, right? Or any of the people visiting the site. So you have to be consistent and just make it as easy as possible for the machines. That's and the people. I mean, don't get me wrong. You have to build for two audiences. You have to build for the people and the machines, but that's as simple as it gets.
It goes back to what I was mentioning before about needing to do the reps, but then also being very clear. And something else that, we write about it a lot on the Daily Pitch, being genuine, like being authentic about what it is that you do. I think too often there are people, and I saw a lot of this as I was building my brain to put this thing together and websites and search and all of that stuff. I know, I did a lot of YouTube video watching, and I noticed a lot of people are saying the same thing. And usually they're saying the same thing because they're trying to move you to ultimately buying a course, right? So they're kind of using YouTube as a mechanism for doing that. And I found myself watching some of these videos and going, how old is this? Like, how does this person know this stuff? Like, where are they coming from at this? What is their purpose for wanting to, are they really trying to educate people, like help people out? Or are they really just trying to sell a course and bring you into their sales funnel, if you will? So, you do have to be careful of things like that as you're building your brain around stuff. So a lot of the work that you're doing then with AOK Marketing is around search, around helping businesses get noticed and doing all of those right things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find that there's a lot of misinformation, just touching base on the YouTube side of things and the videos and the information. So the information that's out there, you've probably heard what you need to do before. It's like if you need to lose weight, everybody knows you eat less, you walk more,
eat good food,
eat good food. Yeah, eat good food, walk, move more, and you'll
we all know what to do
every day, right? Like, and be held accountable. So those three things, SEO is all about doing cool stuff, talking about that cool stuff, and making it findable for people. Like none of this is rocket science. But people want to spin it in a certain way. They don't understand how it works. Like if all of a sudden they throw out words like schema markup, and they'll be like, oh, technical SEO and all this kind of stuff, which really matters. And it is very important stuff. But at the same time, people don't know why this type of things works. And
it's an attribute of many other important things. So you can't just say this one thing is the it right now.
Yeah, well, and that's just like talking about business, right? Acquisition is one of the, acquisition, delivery, and admin, right? Like that acquisition term buckets so many other terms underneath it, to like all the way down to you need to put an email together with this kind of headline, right? Like all the way back up through to this is all part of acquisition. So for sure.
I was attending something here in Atlanta called VidFest, and one of the speakers had shared this very intriguing idea. He said, if you really want to boost your views and boost your subscribers, one way to do that is promote a video through YouTube. Look for countries that are English speaking, but may not necessarily be, so he threw up India as an example. He goes, create a video that's targeted toward English speaking people in India, because India's got 1 billion person population, and there's going to be a few 100 million people out there who speak English in the country. And I tried it. Like I spent $20, and in 24 hours, 2,000 views and 300 subscribers. Right?
Wow. Yeah.
Like, amazing. Here's the downside, though. my market isn't India. Like most of the people who came on board were people who are not in my target audience and not in that, when I'm talking about things that we're doing and trying to, do courses and things like that, it's not really my target audience for what we're selling. And so the cautionary tale there is, sometimes people give you some insight that yield amazing results, but that may actually hurt you in the end, because then the algorithm starts to think that, oh, well, more people in this, part of the world want to see this content, and it kind of negates the point of what you're trying to do.
No, absolutely. And there's vanity metrics, and there's, like having 2,000 views and 300 subscribers is amazing if they were all in your ideal customer profile, right?
Yeah.
If they're, and as you say, that now it'll serve to India in terms of your additional content, right? So, but I look at it like, if I can help one person, talking on this podcast, if one person hears this and goes, oh, that was helpful, that's, for me, that's a win. Like I don't need more than that. Like if you think about it, okay, so you got 15 views or you got 100 views. Think about that in terms of like people in a room. Would you, if it's the right people, again, talking about this, would you want to present your ideas to 15 of your ideal customer market? Absolutely. Like 15, I would go to that room. It's 100. Absolutely. You have 1,000. Think about how many people 1,000 people is. Like 2,000 views. Like that's like, we're starting to get into stadium numbers here, right? Like of how big that is and how many people, but you just lose the perspective when you're looking at views, because people just throw around, 10 million views and I got 1 million views of this and I have 100,000 subscribers or whatever the number is.
But what's the quality of it, right?
Exactly.
That reminds me. I was at a conference recently, kind of a networking group recently, and we were talking about networking and meeting people. And they say, today we are so just the fact that we can reach so many people through social media has kind of really hurt the perception of what it means to network with people. There are people who go, oh, well, there aren't going to be people there who like my product or sell my thing, so they'll just kind of pass it up. But you and I have the benefit of remembering the world before the internet as it is today.
Yeah.
I remember people would like print get your business cards, and if you had a room of 20 people, you were like, wow, 20 people, like who knows who I'll meet.
Yeah, I might be able to get 7 business cards and give out 5 of my own, and it'll be, yeah, absolutely. I remember that.
So, in some ways, social media and networking through, online events and things like that is kind of ruined how special it can be to just reach, as you just mentioned, just one person. You don't know what the power of that could lead to.
Yeah. Well, even if this, we get one listen from this podcast, I'm going to thank that one person and thank you very much for listening.
We will get more than one.
More than one is good, but all it takes is one, and hopefully they'll get something from it. So.
That is true. Well, Dave, I know that got some things coming up, and I definitely don't want to step on your time and give you some time to prep for things, but I do want people to know if they're interested in finding you, and maybe just kind of also giving a little bit of how do you help businesses get what they need, and then how do they find you as well?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect. I'd love to connect with you there. I've got a few thoughts on X that I put out there, but it's not business related. It's more, a little bit of philosophy. I've been doing this for a while now, so just some thoughts that I'm playing around with. But if they're looking for businesses that, that we can help, it's usually medium to larger businesses is who we help get found. And those businesses have a lot of the components that are needed to be able to truly support great authority. So we're trying to help people in the long run get found kind of today, tomorrow, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, because as I said, I've been doing this long enough that I know all of the hacks work in the short term, and then they get abused, and then the next hack, and then the next hack, and then they'll change the algorithm and you get slapped again. But if you do the right things over time, you'll get noticed. So that's what we do. So if you've got a medium or larger business, love to be able to help you out on that side of things.
Well, awesome. Well, I appreciate your insight, your wisdom, things that you had to share. And definitely, folks, if you guys are interested in learning more about Dave or engaging in AOK marketing or promotional products, both fantastic opportunities to do that, or reach out to Dave directly as he invited you all to do. Thank you all, everybody, for checking out this episode of Disc Media Startup Story. We will be back once again, another special guest lined up. We're going to keep it a surprise till we release the episode. But until then, thank you all very much. Thank you for checking us out. And we'll see you next time. Have a good one.
Thanks so much for having me, Ben.
Thanks for listening to Disc Media, A Startup Story. This podcast was produced and edited by Ben Olmos and is a production of Disc Media Corporation. If you're interested in learning more about anything you heard on this episode, please reach out to us at podcast@discmedia.com. You can also get more information about this and other episodes or information about our guests by checking out dailypitch.news, our business and insights publication focused on helping managers, leaders, and entrepreneurs get better at what they do.